Hey, CrossFitters, welcome back. It's Coach Bob here, CrossFit Glen Burnie, and today we're getting into the foundations of increased performance and increased health. So you want to stick with us. If you're thinking about getting better and performing better in your workouts while also improving your health, you want to pay attention to what we've got for you today in today's video. We're going to start with the definition of fitness from the early days of CrossFit and how that relates to our improvements in health as well. And we're going to dig into the microbiology and we're going to show you the foundations of why we're so excited about increased performance and increased health. So together, let's jump in. We're going to start with a video with Chuck Carswell. He's going to go over the kind of like the foundations of work capacity and how that relates to our increases in our fitness. So we're going to let Chuck set the definition of increases in fitness. Then we're going to dig in a little deeper, make that relationship to health. Then we're going to dig into the microbiology. So we'll probably need about 5 or 6 minutes together. Let's jump in and take a look at what Chuck. All right, so we got Chuck Carswell here. And the definition we have there is that fitness is your work capacity across broad time and modal domains. Now, as a CrossFitter, you probably have heard this before. If you haven't heard it before, it's why we get so excited about these CrossFit workouts with defined times and movements and repetition schemes and things like that. Because if we can see improvements in the workouts we do, we know that we're seeing improvements in our fitness. And I'm going to show you how we relate our improvements in fitness to our improvements in health. So we're going to start with Chuck.
And so the story is, he or she is fittest with the greatest work capacity across broad time and modal domains. That's a technical term. Modal domains is nothing more than the activities that we just chose out of the hopper. That's all they are, modalities. Gymnastics, you moving your body through space, air squat, right? What we just did. Pull-ups, rope climbs. Weightlifting, where we use an external object, medicine ball, barbell, bag of sand, dog food. Or we have the monostructural components, which is typically the running, rowing, things that Kipchoge and those guys typically use. He or she is fittest with the greatest area underneath the curve.
All right, so Chuck has set the stage for us here and basically outlining that if we're looking for improving our fitness, what we're looking at doing is improving what we can do, our performance, across a lot of different workouts, a lot of different time domains, and a lot of different types of movements, whether it's gymnastics or weightlifting and things like that. If we see improvement in that those workouts and improved fitness, then we can see improvements in our fitness. So now I'm going to make that relationship that between fitness and health, and then we're going to dive into the details of what's really happening that are those physiological adaptations and how those are relating to improvements in fitness and improvements in health. All right, so this is our sickness, wellness, fitness continuum. And the relationship we're making here is that we have a relationship between sickness and wellness that we're all pretty much familiar with. And a doctor may run a blood test, may make some measurements and get some data. Hey, we want to figure out what's going on here. Let's see how you're doing. It's a checkup. We got blood pressure, body fat, bone density, triglycerides, and so on. And the doctor may look at a lot of these correlates for health and be able to make some sort of judgment about our overall fitness, right? So we know increases in body fat, decreases in bone density, high triglycerides, an unfavorable ratio of HDL to LDL cholesterol, high levels of glycated hemoglobin, muscle mass low, blood pressure high, and things like that. And there can be various ranges of those, obviously. And the more these things trend toward sickness, the worse off we are, right? And we know that as these things improve, that our wellness is better and better. And so what we noticed was that as we continue to train, as we continue to look at our pay attention to our nutrition and work on our health, or work on our activity level and on our nutrition, then we see that these things continue to improve. Continued improvement in blood pressure regulation, continued favorable body fat and body composition, improvements in our increases in bone density, very well understood. Decreases in triglyceride, usually around improvements in nutrition, favorable HDL to LDL cholesterol, where the HDL starts to come up and you get a much favorable ratio there. The glycated hemoglobin, better regulation of the blood glucose, and we see improvements there. Muscle mass improving. These things are related. And if you had a chance to see some of the videos that we went through over the last couple of weeks, we talked about the metabolism of carbohydrates. We talked about the metabolism of lipids or fat. We talked about the metabolism of protein and how these things are related to our overall health, right? And there's a couple of takeaways that we had for each one of these. So I want to share those with you to set the stage before we look at yet another chapter of what's happening when we work on our fitness, right? So if we remember, when we looked at the carbohydrates are going to be a fuel source for our body. In fact, the carbohydrates, the fat, and the protein all provide layers of metabolic substrate energy that we can use in our workouts. Now, when we look at carbohydrates, when those carbohydrates are out of control and they're high levels, then we know that a lot of that carbohydrate ends up in our blood and then has to be dealt with. And there's, if the muscles that we have are not really being used very much, so we're inactive or sedentary, then that carbohydrate really doesn't have a good use as far as being able to restore muscle glycogen in those muscles, right? So we find that in today's diet that the carbohydrates are usually much higher than they need to be to replenish the muscle glycogen and liver glycogen given our current lifestyles. And so they tend to be less favorable. When we looked at lipids, what we learned was that when we eat fat, that if we have a diet that has a higher level of fat content relative to our carbohydrates, well, I shouldn't say that it's necessarily out of balance, but let's put it this way. If I am trying to, if I have a weight loss goal and I'm trying to mobilize that fatty acid so that I can use that as my primary fuel source, let's just call it fat burning workouts, yet my diet doesn't match up with that, meaning I'm fueling myself with a higher carbohydrate diet, but I want to be fat burning, that we know that doesn't really match up. The nutrition and your nutritional goals have to match up with your overall goals and your activities, right? So if you want a fat burning workout, then you have to have a diet that supports that goal. We can't be loading up on the carbohydrates because then the body is going to say, well, I've got to burn off I got to use this extra glucose I have first. And that fatty acid that gets mobilized into the bloodstream will end up just getting redeposited back as adipose tissue because it's just not going to be used because our diet's not supporting our overall goals. For protein, what we learned was that it was essential for us to have a protein source in our diet. If we want to, we know that muscle mass is going to be favorable to preventing chronic disease, right? So if we have less muscle mass, then we're going to have less muscle glycogen, less activity, And it really puts us at a disadvantage metabolically relative to our overall goals and health. So we want to build up more muscles to be able to do more, perform more, and that if our nutrition is lacking of essential proteins, then the body has a difficult time building that muscle mass that we're looking for. Now, when we say muscle mass, we're not looking at, being Arnold Schwarzenegger muscle mass with a lot of bulky muscles. We're just looking for favorable body composition where the muscle mass is speaking more loudly than the adipose tissue or the body fat. Now, today, what we're going to do is we're going to go in a little bit deeper, and we're going to look at what's going on in the muscles that basically takes the energy, the stored substrates, and provides fuel to working cells. Okay, so bear with me a little bit as we go through this together. I'm going to tie together both the improvements in performance as well as the improvements in health. And when we get those two things together, then you finally make the connection between the improvements in your overall, your CrossFit workouts are getting better, your performance is getting better, you're feeling better, you're sleeping better, and you're also, your doctor's getting happy because these things that we have on the screen are also improving. So, we're digging really deep, and we're looking at the individual cells and the mitochondria and what they're doing, but we can't really lose sight of the performance gains. What does that mean, right? And the improvements of, health and fitness. What is that really talking about, right? I want to make that connection. And when we look at performance gains, the mitochondria provide the essential role of supplying that energy to those cells. And if the mitochondria are lacking or they're in any way, then the amount of energy that we can provide to those working cells is going to be diminished. So our performance is going to drop off. If we want to increase performance, then we need to make sure that we have good mitochondrial health, right? So at the cellular level. And we're going to, so that's why we care about what's happening to the mitochondria, because it's going to have a dramatic impact on our performance. Related to health now, we can also, we're going to tie in a few things there as well as the nutrition. Okay, so we're looking at chapter 5, this chapter talking about exercise and the regulation of mitochondrial turnover. The first thing that we've got is that exercise is a well-known stimulus for the expansion of the mitochondrial pool within skeletal muscles. Mitochondria have a remarkable ability to remodel their networks and respond to an array of signaling stimuli following contractile activity. So we're building muscle, right? We're doing things. We're on the exercise pike. We're doing wall balls. We're doing jump rope. They adapt to the metabolic demands of the tissue. They're going to be synthesizing proteins to expand the mitochondrial reticulum. So a lot of what we were talking about was, creation of the mitochondria and the expansion of the mitochondrial reticulum to allow it to process more and to do more. So in addition, when mitochondria become dysfunctional, these organelles can be recycled by a specialized intercellular system, right? So mitochondria have health all to their own. They could be, good and healthy, or they can be dysfunctional, and then they get targeted and recycled. Mitochondria turnover, so that's basically creation of new mitochondria and recycling of the dysfunctional mitochondria, has valuable consequences in physical performance and in addition to metabolic health, disease, and aging. Consideration of the signals which control this cycle is vital. So they try to understand what's going on there because it has such broad impact on our performance, our metabolic health, disease, and aging. So that's why we care, right? So this is basically a few things I pulled out here just to kind of give us some more detail and color on what's happening. So exercise is obviously a powerful metabolic stress. When Chuck Carswell was talking about broad time and modal domains, that's a lot of different metabolic stress, right? So short sprinty workouts, long endurance type workouts, interval style workouts, a lot of resistance training workouts, and so on, building on all of that. One of the most dramatic examples of adaptation that occurs is the increase in the mitochondrial content within muscle. So that was one of the things we talked about, right? So if it would be favorable to have more mitochondria present in the muscle, which is coincident with a reduction in fatigability and an improvement in endurance performance, right? So if we want our endurance to improve, or if our endurance is improving, then we can attribute that to the increase in the mitochondrial content. Maybe I took a little bit of liberty there going that direction. Basically, if endurance improves, then we're seeing improvements in the mitochondrial content. But certainly and clearly that if we have increases in the mitochondrial content, the muscles are going to have more stamina and be able to have more, we're going to be able to have better endurance overall. Okay, so chronic muscle disuse. So this is where, I'm not exercising and I am regularly, I'm not active, I'm sedentary. And this is going to result in the opposite change. So the opposite change you can see is moving us more toward sickness, right? Chronic physical inactivity leads to decrements in the organelle content and function within the muscle, poor performance, and an increase in oh my gosh, I used to know how to say this, apoptotic susceptibility, which is basically the turnover, not really the turnover, but death of some of the mitochondria. So they just end up deranged and not very useful. The metabolic derangements associated with inactivity and the loss of mitochondria include a greater storage rather than the oxidation of liquids. Okay, guys, we're talking about fat here. So the loss of mitochondria include a greater storage of fat rather than the oxidation of lipids, and a tendency for obesity and insulin resistance. So you can make the connection between weight loss and weight loss goals and the important role of good, healthy mitochondria, right? And now, we kind of start to see links between improvements in health and the improvements in our performance in workouts. Notably, exercise can counteract many of the aging and inactive induced detrimental effects observed on metabolism associated with defective mitochondria. So that statement alone is huge. If we can just exercise, we can counteract a lot of the detrimental effects that are going on, with metabolism, and so I'm really excited about that for sure. So let's see here. We'll go on. This is kind of talking a little bit about. I want to kind of tie in those broad time and modal domains. Why is it that we cannot, just do one exercise, right? And we could be healthy. Let's just bike, and like, if you like biking, we'll bike. If you like jump rope, we'll just do jump rope. Why do we do broad, modal, and time domains? Why do we have longer, shorter workouts? Why do we do different kinds of movements, right? So this kind of talks about it. So as different muscle fiber types are recruited in a hierarchical manner determined by the intensity of the exercise employed, it would appear that an intensity of exercise sufficient enough to recruit the greatest number of fiber types might be the most useful in facilitating whole muscle adaptations. So we want to get the whole muscle involved. the whole body involved, and we want to get all those muscle fibers involved. If we can do that, then we're going to see the greatest adaptation in our muscles, right? Why would you want a workout that isn't going to deliver the kinds of results that you want, right? It's only going to deliver half of them or a quarter of them or 10% of it. You really want to get the most out of your workouts. And that's why CrossFit workouts are so effective in affecting our overall health, because they have a broad range of metabolic demands, a broad range of types of movement, and all of that is beneficial and fun. So this suggests that exercise intensity is directly related to the magnitude with which skeletal muscle mitochondria enzyme content is augmented. So intensity is definitely a hallmark of CrossFit. And for anyone who is maybe unsure or thinks that intensity means intense, it really is talking instead about a range of intensities and how that without the intensity, if it's comfortable, then we're not going to recruit all of those muscle fibers. It's going to be a less of a workout. Okay. Let's see here. We also want to put forward the idea that a variety of high-intensity interval training programs may be capable of yielding increases in skeletal muscle oxidative capacity, similar to that of continuous endurance training, right? So the details here is that you could go out for 2 hours and run. You could go out and, every day for 7 days a week and put 14 or 20 hours in to develop your endurance. But if you could get the same benefit with interval training, why would you want to spend all that time pounding the pavement when you can get at least as much benefit from high intensity training, if not more? Okay. Let's see if we got anything else in here. Okay, so in addition, and they're talking about exercise, to promoting mitochondrial biogenesis, creation of new mitochondria, it's been suggested that interval training programs can foster the remodeling of the mitochondrial network, right? There's a lot of adaptations, and again, kind of talking about why we want broad time and modal domains, right? We're not really trying to specialize. We're trying to build, increase that area under the curve that Chuck Carswell was talking about so that we can create broad fitness. And this may have implications for mitochondrial function, as skeletal muscle mitochondria isolated from individuals who have undergone HIIT programs display an increase in maximal ADP simulated respiration rate and respiration control ratio. So basically what that is saying is that the muscles are more efficient at taking in and processing the oxygen and the energy. And so you're going to perform better. So that muscle is going to be healthier relative to being able to perform more, because we see improvements in its respiration rate. So at the cellular level, you're making these incredible improvements. Okay, in the conclusions that concomitant with an increase in the quantity of the mitochondria is the expansion of the organelle network and augmented antioxidant capacity. Exercise results in an enhanced removal of dysfunctional mitochondria. And this is kind of getting back to the tie-in with health, right? If we've got a lot of dysfunctional mitochondria and it's just hanging around, not only does that contribute to overall poor performance, it's going to contribute to poor health, and probably poor health in a very bad way. So what we want to do is we want good, healthy mitochondria. So what else we got? Finally, it's vital for improvements. So it's basically saying altogether, these kinds of alterations and these adaptations that we see in the mitochondria are beneficial to muscle in that they afford the organ the ability, or the person, the ability to function more efficiently and effectively, and are vital for improvements in endurance capacity and well-being, particularly during the aging process. Now, if that doesn't get you excited, so we covered a lot today, and for the 2 or 3 of us that made it through the entire video, I'm glad that we were able to dig in a little deeper and make some of these connections, because I feel and I believe that if we could have a better understanding of what's happening at the very lowest level, then it's a little bit easier to think about, how am I fueling myself with my nutrition? Am I giving myself the right kinds of food that I should be eating so that I can not only perform better in the gym, but also live happier and healthier lives? And also to, by understanding a lot of what's happening at the cellular level, you can also celebrate all of those PRs and successes and things like that, and know that when you're going to the gym and when you're active and when you're playing your sports and all of that, that you're taking good care of your health as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us today on this episode of Coach Bob at CrossFit Glen Burnie. You guys take care. Bye now. Peace.